What's up, weirdos? My name is Felicia and I like scary movies, and today we're talking about the CBS reboot of The Twilight Zone. And as I'm sure you know, Jordan Peele of Get Out and Us is one of the producers as well as the narrator. So I watched The Twilight Zone a lot as a kid. My family watched the show. My brother was really obsessed with it. But what I didn't know is they tried to do a couple of reboots already, once in 1985 and once in 2002, and neither of them really went that well. So this 2019 version is actually the third attempt to find the magic that that first series had. And did it succeed? Did it find it? Almost. So there are 10 episodes in this season of The Twilight Zone. It's already been renewed for a second season. And in these 10 episodes, you have some amazing writers, directors. You have the money of CBS. Like, the production value is really, really good. And here's the first thing I want to talk about. So each episode sort of tackles a different social issue that's going on in America right now, which I think is really smart and really great. My problem with it is that the writing of these episodes are super, super literal, and doesn't seem to trust the audience to understand metaphor through storytelling. So I'll try not to talk about this part for too long, but I truly believe storytelling is one of our greatest tools for social change. I feel like people, if you try to tell them what to think, they are immediately going to resist. But I think if you can show someone a character that they can empathize with and a story that they can understand, it can really change someone's core beliefs. And I think that's like really powerful, right? But my problem is the writing in these episodes feels so literal and feels so like this is what we're telling you to think and this is the moral of the episode, that I think it has the potential to put off some viewers. And so while I was watching the series, I was like, oh, some of these ideas are really cool. Some of these like concepts for these episodes and the metaphors are really interesting. But because I wasn't fully connecting to the story and the characters, I found myself only watching the social commentary. And that I think is not super helpful. The things I think this show does really well, one is the casting. I think all the actors are incredible. The diversity of the actors is really exciting. I think we have so many lead characters that are of color. It also does have the thing that the original Twilight Zone has, where it's weird and edgy, and yet also family friendly in a way, where it's like kids could watch these episodes, but that doesn't mean that they're not really dark. And then my other problem with the series is just that the episodes are too long. So especially that first episode, The Comedian, I felt like I was watching that episode for like 6 hours. Like, it felt long, and that is not what you want. I think the original Twilight Zone episodes are like 20 to 25 minutes. These like short, weird, strange stories, they don't need that much time to be told. And so in these episodes, it feels like there's a lot of filler, and so it feels really slow. And I think that's like sad. I also am not super clear about how much of a hand Jordan Peele had. He didn't write the episodes. Like, I think he's the writer on one of them, but he didn't write the episodes. He didn't direct any of the episodes. And I'm just wondering how much he, as a storyteller and a maker of spooky things, had a hand in how this was like curated and how these stories were told, because I just feel like Jordan Peele is such an amazing storyteller, and I felt like these episodes weren't a representation of that, but also he didn't write them. They're putting Jordan Peele's like name as the main thing on The Twilight Zone, but at the same time, he didn't really write or direct any of the episodes. He's just sort of the narrator, and I don't have a full understanding about how involved he was with the show. So I don't know. I think also I'm just like an insanely huge Jordan Peele fan, and I like don't want to believe that this show was bad because of him, because I really don't think it was. So originally this video was gonna be like a full ranking of the episodes, and while I was watching them, I just had like the hardest time ranking them. Like, I even made like note cards, and I was like trying to move them around, and I just like couldn't find the right order. And so many of them felt really similar to me and like where they would lie in a ranking. And so I was just like, so I'm just gonna talk about a couple of my favorite episodes, and then maybe do some special shout outs at the end. So one of my favorite episodes was Blu Pistol. This one was written by Glenn Morgan, who was a writer on X-Files, and directed by Craig William McNeil, who has directed on Chilling Adventures of Sabrina and also Channel Zero. So Chris O'Dowd plays this guy named Jeff that finds his father dead in their house. and it's by this gun called the Blue Scorpion. And so the Blue Scorpion sort of attaches itself to Chris O'Dowd. This episode is very much about gun control, and I found it actually really scary, and I thought Chris O'Dowd gave an incredible performance. Like, he's so good in this episode, and I thought the ending, even though it was like really on the nose, I still was like really affected by it. And so I think this whole episode like played out really well. Storytelling, I cared about the character, and I thought it was really scary. The other episode I want to talk about is called Replay. It was written by Selwyn Seyfu Hines and directed by Gerard McMurray, who you'll know from directing The First Purge from 2018. So this one is about a woman that is trying to like drive her son to college, and she has this old camcorder that she realizes can rewind time, and she's using this camcorder to try to escape this cop. The mother was played by Sanaa Lathan, and I thought she was amazing. Her character, for me, like, I fully cared so much about her, and her son, played by Damson Idris. Both of these characters, like, I felt like I really cared about. I felt like they were really well-rounded, and when I was following their story, that's where my fear set in, because I was so worried about them. This episode is definitely about police brutality and profiling, and I'll say this episode is one of the most literal ones of the whole bunch. But because the storytelling, like the writing is so much better, and the characters feel more developed to me, I found this one to be really, really scary and just well done overall. Now I'll just talk about like a couple stand-up performances. So Steven Yeun, who played A Traveler in the episode called A Traveler, he was so awesome in that. He was really scary. Also, side note, that episode was directed by Anna Lily Amirpour, who is the girl that wrote and directed A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. Also, shout out to Thaisa Farmiga, who is in Not All Men. She is really great in this. It's so funny. I had like a full period of time where I didn't really like her acting very much, and now as like she's gotten a little older, and maybe that I've got a little older, I actually really like her as this actress that keeps showing up in horror movies. I really, really liked her acting in this one. You know what? I'm actually gonna do like a weird thing right now, or just like a more casual thing, going off script for a second. So let me just go through the episodes, and I'll just tell you like a little bit about what I thought. So the first one, The Comedian, for me, that was the one that was way, way too long. Interesting concept-ish, but just too long and too much fluff and too boring. The next one is Nightmare at 30,000 Feet. This one has Adam Scott in it. That one I thought was like a very interesting concept of like, he's like listening to this podcast that's telling him how things are gonna play out as they play out on this flight. And I thought that was like interesting, and I thought parts of it was scary. Once again, in terms of like storytelling and character development, I was just sort of like, eh. And then third episode, Replay, I already talked about it. Fourth episode is A Traveler, which I mentioned briefly. This one, I actually liked the vibe of the most. It was like a Christmas party at a police precinct, I guess is what it's called, or sheriff's office, I don't know. And that one was like an alien one, and I really liked the vibe a lot, but once again, like, I didn't really care about the characters, and so when things happened to them, I sort of was like, meh. But like the vibe itself, I was like, I love this. Number 5 was The Wonder Kind, and that is about this political campaign manager who ends up backing a like 10-year-old child to become the president of the United States. It's very much like, hey, Trump is a child, and we're like, we know. And so that one for me was like so on the nose in a way. It did have some like interesting parts to it, but it was just like, okay. Number 6 was 6 Degrees of Freedom. So this is one that takes place on like a space mission to go to Mars, and the crew basically goes into Mars. Actually, I guess I shouldn't say that because it's a spoiler, but basically I thought this one was interesting and okay. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like the ranking up thing was not gonna work, because I was always like, this one was like, okay, it was pretty good. Like, there was things about it I liked. This one in particular, there's a great song by the Interrupters, which you should definitely look up, called Family. I'll link it down below. Number 7 was Not All Men. This one was the one with Thaisa Farmiga, and it's after a meteor shower. All the men are like affected by this meteor, and they become like super angry and like aggressive, and they start attacking everything that moves. And this one I actually found to be pretty scary. I thought this was a pretty good episode, but once again, it's just like everything feels so on the nose. I was like, yeah. Number 8, Point of Origin. This one was actually pretty interesting. It was about a white woman who was basically taken by immigration for being an illegal refugee but from another dimension. And that one was really interesting to watch a white actress like go through this horrible thing. Number 9 is The Blue Scorpion, which I already talked about. And number 10 is Blurry Man, and that one got really like meta in a fun way that I enjoyed, but I thought like it sort of was boring and didn't make sense, and they sort of was like, it was one of those things where like for this one they just relied on one specific gimmick that it was just like, I need more storytelling and character development. I need it. Please give it to me for season 2. Because what they're doing I think is cool and important, but it's like they're not quite like killing it. They're just sort of like, they're doing the idea of it and not like the thing that's gonna actually affect people. So if you've seen any of the episodes of The Twilight Zone, let me know what your favorite episodes were down below. I would love to know. Also, even like what are your favorite episodes of the original series? I would like to know that as well. So I will see you in my next video, and have a nice scream. Bye.